Everything is very pleasant wherever you may be. Welcome to another episode of WYN. What's your name? Well, we talk about names and we think about names because names are important. Because in life, you're given three names: the name you're given at birth, the name you're called by your peers, friends, family, and teammates, and then the name that you make for yourself. And that's very important on this particular episode because I'm going to talk briefly about a docu-series that can be viewed on Amazon Prime. It is called The Evolution of the Black Quarterback. And on this particular series, it goes through the history of the NFL and the quarterback position. And within that, we actually go through and look at how the league has changed. And it's very interesting to see how, we say things like people come up with these names or people make the names of themselves and they are considered the greatest of all time, the best ever, a game changer, a winner, a champion, a fighter, a competitor, all those things that are part of who they are and part of the name that they have created. But for these guys, that road has not always been that easy. And one thing about this particular image that I like is this little kid right here. I'm gonna get out of the way a little bit. Because at one point, this kid was all of these guys that you see here. And some of them didn't really have anyone to observe, watch, and see to believe that they can do it. Some of them just had to say, hey, I can do that. I can be that. I can be not only a black quarterback, I can be a great quarterback. And some of the names that I'm going to read off to you briefly are names you may know very well: Jalen Hurts, Mike Vick, Donovan McNabb, Ronald Cunningham, Rodney Peete. That encompasses several decades of quarterbacks who played for the Philadelphia Eagles. Some other names that you may know from that are still currently playing: Patrick Mahomes, I mentioned Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Kyler Murray, C.J. Stroud, Geno Smith. I feel like I'm missing a few other, but all of these gentlemen are current African American or black quarterbacks. And it's very interesting to see how the game has changed from then to now. Because just to give you a little historic background, the NFL started in the 1920s. I think it actually began in 1920. And during 1920, racism and segregation was a part of society. That was a lifestyle. That was a way of life. In the 1930s, you had the Depression, and in that instance, you had something where they didn't want to have. They definitely didn't want to have black players. I mean, black quarterbacks, but they didn't want to have black players. So for 12 years, they had no black players. And for whatever reason or another, the quarterback was symbolic of the leader or the smartest or the most important one on the field. So for whatever reason, we had people with a screwed up, demented, messed up, just ignorant mindset that African American men, black guys, could not play that position. In 1946, the league reintegrated when Cleveland moved to California, and they were going to play in the Coliseum. But shout out to California and the Coliseum because they said we won't allow you to have a team here if you want to allow African Americans to play on your team. And that's how the league began to be reintegrated. So those are just some of the small lessons that I picked up on just from watching this already. And it also talked about how, after the Civil War, HBCUs were founded, and that's where all the black athletes had an opportunity to play because they weren't given those opportunities. And then we know as time progressed, and we see the landscape of college football, how black players, African American players are all over the place. And while HBCUs are still out there and they still have programs, their programs do not have the financial backing as some of these other programs. But as I said, this particular documentary focuses on the evolution of the black quarterback. I think it's like 5 episodes. I think you should check it out. And I'm gonna dig deeper on an episode of Unpopular Opinion because I got some things that I want to talk about. But in the first episode, I'm gonna mention some of these same names. Tony Dungy. You may know him, but you may not have known that he played quarterback. He actually played quarterback, but he was not drafted in the NFL. They told him, hey, if you want to play in the NFL, you got to change positions. And that is something that is continues to go on to this day. He decided to change position. He ended up playing DB, and he had a career in the NFL. He went on to coach. Warren Moon also played quarterback at the same time Tony Dungy. But Warren Moon said, I'm not changing positions. He went to the CFL and then he ended up coming back to the NFL later in his career and having a successful career. Some of the quarterbacks that they talked about in this particular episode are Fritz Pollard, Warren Moon, Eldridge Dickey, Chuck Ely, Kenny Washington, Willie Thrower, Charles Choo Choo Brackens, Marlon Briscoe, Rodney Peete, James Shaq Harris, and Doug Williams. Now, Michael Vick, he goes around and he visits and speaks with these individuals or people who know about these individuals. And he also has some other individuals that come on and know the historical context of these individuals. Because something that I did not realize, but Fritz Pollard, he was one of the first players to actually play in college, I think it was, and because they didn't really, well, no, Fritz Pollard, he was one of the first African Americans to play in the NFL when they were trying to show that the NFL was actually a viable product. Think about that. How far removed are we from that? And NFL is the number one revenue producing sport out there. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken. But Warren Moon, as I stated, he played in the CFL first, then he had to come to the NFL. Eldridge Dickey, I believe he was drafted by the Raiders, but he didn't play. Kenny Stabler actually was drafted after him, and he ended up playing more than him, and he ended up being a Hall of Famer. But they drafted Eldridge earlier than him, so that should tell you something about his talent. Chuck Ely, he played in the CFL. He was undefeated throughout high school and college, but for whatever reason, they didn't want to give him an opportunity. Well, the reason was because he was black. Kenny Washington, he actually integrated uh, the position. Willie Thrower, he started for one game, and then that was it. Charles Choo Choo Brackens, he threw 2 incomplete passes, and he was out of there. Marlon Briscoe, he actually was the first African American quarterback to start in the NFL. He started for the season, and then I think he ended up after that season he ended up leaving because discrimination, basically. And he ended up going to Buffalo, played wide receiver. He ended up playing for the Miami Dolphins as well, and he won a couple Super Bowls. But he was just a great, gifted, talented athlete. Could have played any position. Rodney Pete, we talked about how he wanted to play quarterback and he wasn't necessarily given the opportunities. He was drafted much later because people didn't want to take a chance on him. James Shaq Harris, he was the first black QB to start a season in the NFL. And that was back in the 60s. And he was a Pro Bowler. He was a Pro Bowl MVP. And then Doug Williams, of course, he was the first black quarterback to win the Super Bowl. He played at an HBCU, Grambling. Played in the NFL. Contract came up. They didn't want to pay the man. Discrimination. He ended up going to the USFL. The USFL folded. Joe Gibbs gave him a call, gave him an opportunity, came back, started in the playoffs, took him through the playoff, took the Washington Redskins that are now known as the Washington Commanders, took them to the Super Bowl, led them to the Super Bowl and won it. Beat out John Elway, actually. Now, we talk about names because I'm getting ready to just close this one out because I got a lot more I want to kind of touch on with this particular episode, but I'm going to say that for unpopular opinion. So, one of the things that kept coming up was chance, opportunity. And if someone would have been given the chance and the opportunity, who knows how history would have been written, how it would have been reshaped if you would have given those individuals that are gifted, skilled, talented, able to do the job the right opportunity. So as I was looking at this, I was thinking about, okay, people consider Tom Brady the greatest of all time. Now, he may very well be the greatest that you or I have seen, or maybe not the greatest. He may have been the greatest winner that you and I have ever seen. But we know Patrick Mahomes, I feel like he's better than Tom Brady. I'm just gonna throw that out there. And when it's all said and done, he may be the greatest winner. But 70 is remarkable. 7 rings is remarkable. Now, the thing of it is this: that name, greatest of all time, that name, GOAT, we can't really say that definitively because there are individuals out there that were given an opportunity, but they were not given an equal opportunity. And there are even more out there that were not given an opportunity at all. So when we toss around these names and these titles, we got to be careful. But we also need to consider, are we using someone's name or characteristic against them? Because throughout this society and history of America, some things have happened that have discriminated against race, religion, gender, class, men, women, children, everything in between. So, in building your name, I just want to leave you with this. There will be obstacles, there will be uh, inconsistencies, there will be inequalities. Sometimes you are going to do everything you can possibly do, and it still won't be enough. But the thing about it is, there was someone that came before you that may have had it even worse than you and made it a little bit easier for you to do what you do. So I just want you to continue to press on because you are standing on the shoulders of giants and your name can help propel the next generation. So that's all I got. I'm just going to stop right there, man. But for this episode of WYN, like I said in life, you have 3 names: the name you're given, the name you're called, and the name that you make for yourself. Make the most of your name. Make it well you can be proud of your name and others can be proud of your name. Once again, 3 names: the name you're called, the name you're given, and the name that you make for yourself. I'm going to say it a third time because I messed it up the second time. The name you are given, the name you are called, and the name that you create for yourself. Make it a great name.